Hey, this is Ago. Welcome to another episode of SalesTalk.tv, and today we're going to be talking about the new ABC of selling. In 1993, in the famous film classic Glengarry Glen Ross, Alec Baldwin stood up in front of his team and said, "Always be closing, ABC." That became the mantra for legions of sellers and salespeople for almost 2 decades. Everybody was closing left and right. There were pre-closes and trial closes and up closes and post closes, and there were probably closes upon closes. Here's why that didn't work. First off, people hate to be closed. People hate to be artificially moved towards a conclusion of a deal. People want to have the time to think, to reflect, to make a decision. And especially in today's world, where buyers hold more power than ever before, more decision-making ability, and are better informed than ever before, closing too soon and closing too often is a sure death sentence for your sale. Now, for complex, high-end professional services, closing also does not work very well. Maybe it works for relatively low-end commodity, price-based purchases, maybe impulse buys, but for the kinds of services that my clients and I sell, closing does not work very well. And finally, maybe closing will get you one deal, but it may end up costing you the entire relationship. And if you're selling complex services like we are, well, then frankly, the relationship is what it's all about. The relationship is what's going to get you that position as a trusted advisor that is going to get you not only the deal, but the long-term relationship as a valued advisor that you seek. So I promised I'd give you the new ABC of selling. The new ABC of selling is always be collaborating. In Rain Group's most recent research on what sales winners do differently, 2 factors stood out as being highly predictive of why buyers chose one firm over another. The first factor was educated me with new ideas and perspectives. Buyers feel that sellers that come in and tell them something new are tremendously valuable, and that has a disproportionate impact on your ability of the sale. But guess what the number 2 factor was? That's right, collaborated with me. Buyers they don't want to be sold to, they want to be collaborated with. Now, when I talk to my clients about this, they'll sometimes say, does that mean that I need to become more of a consultant? And where having a consultative approach to selling is always a good idea, it doesn't quite stop there. So let me give you 5 concrete, practical ways in which you can collaborate with your buyer and move the sale forward. The first great way of collaborating is to help your buyer define the problem. Now, I don't know about you, but when I'm in sales situations, more often than not, a buyer has some idea of what the problem looks like, but it's almost invariably either incomplete or incorrect. They haven't discovered the entire extent of the issue and the impact. Maybe they've missed a few things, or maybe they've defined the problem in a way that is simply not the entirely correct way. So a great way for you to start collaborating with your buyer is to help them clarify and really see the problem in its full degree and to its full extent. A second great way of collaborating is to develop and test solutions, potential solutions with your buyer. Almost invariably, if you're selling high-end services, there's never just one way to solve a problem. There's always several, there's always a few. And if you can come back to your buyer and together you can develop 2, 3 potential scenarios or ways in which you can solve the problem, that's a great way of collaborating as well. The third way is to together with your buyer to build a business case. Now, when I build a business case, almost invariably, if I do it by myself, which I hardly ever still do, but I used to in the past, but if I do it by myself, then I get pushback from buyers because they don't accept the numbers because they were not involved in the process. And by definition, let's face it, if you're trying to sell them something, they'll think that you're trying to present the numbers a little bit more favorable than maybe they should be. So a great way to do it is to do it together. Ask them for input, ask them for key figures and numbers. Ask them to validate, ask them for their thoughts on whether or not your business case is correct, and build it together. Another great way of collaborating. And then the final 2 ways of collaborating with your buyer are reducing the extent and the possibility of risk or something going wrong. Think about ways in which your project could derail, could sidetrack, in which you could perhaps not deliver quite the result that you promised, and then together with your buyer, identify and think of ways of mitigating that risk. That is hugely powerful. And finally, the fifth way to collaborate with your buyer is to help them make the internal sale. No sale today happens in isolation. No sale today is a sale where someone somewhere just signs off, unless it's a small sale, but any sizable sale, especially for services, is likely to involve more than one person, all of whom need to be convinced. And especially in today's world where budgets are shrinking, decision level thresholds of budgets are going down, so more people need to be involved. Helping your buyer make the internal sale is hugely important and a great way to cement the relationship. So there you go. 5 concrete practical ways to collaborate with your buyer. Define the problem. Identify and scenarioize, if that's a word, potential solutions. Help them build the business case. Help them identify the risks and mitigate those risks. And then finally, help to make the internal sale. Hope this was useful. If you want to get more practical, tangible, high-end strategies and tips for making the complex sale, for selling to senior executive, for selling high-end complex services, professional services, then subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to get a copy of the report, you can go to winthecomplexsale/win more. That's winthecomplexsale/win more. I'll put the link in the video notes as well. Hope this was useful, and I'll see you on the next episode of salestalk.tv.